So, the other day, I was sitting on my couch bored, and I thought to myself, I wonder how many views the trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu has on YouTube. I'm not making this up. This is a true story. I really do things like this. At the time of making this video, that trailer has 11 million views. And I was surprised because that seemed like a lot. But then I wondered, how does this compare to other upcoming summer blockbusters? And the answer, it ain't great. Here are the other anticipated summer blockbuster movies that The Mandalorian and Grogu will be competing against. The Devil Wears Prada 2 has 15 million. Mortal Kombat 2 has 25 million. The Breadwinner has a shocking 38 million. Masters of the Universe, also 38 million. Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day has 33 million. Toy Story 5 has 16 million. The new Supergirl has 25 million. Minions and Monsters has 18 million. The Odyssey has 45 million. Spider-Man Brand New Day has 31 million. The End of Oak Street has 28 million. Even Dune Part 3 has 37 million. And Avengers Doomsday has 20 million, 20 million, 19 million, and 15 million in their 4 different teasers. Ironically, the only movie they're doing better than is Moana, which is only 6.5 million views. And it's also made by Disney. From this, I'd say Disney, and more specifically Star Wars as a brand, is in trouble. Star Wars has arrived at the worst place for a franchise to be, which is complete apathy. Which is crazy because just 11 years ago, The Force Awakens came out and took the world by storm. It became the second movie ever to cross the $2 billion threshold. So how did we get from the most popular to complete apathy? The answer is a bit more complicated than you might think. Back in October of 2012, Disney bought Lucasfilm and all of its IP. This included Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They paid a hefty price of $4 billion. $1 billion. But figured this would pay for itself. At the time, Star Wars was comprised of 6 movies and 1 TV show, The Clone Wars, which was just entering its 5th season. Disney immediately began production of a new trilogy. They also would finish the final 2 seasons of The Clone Wars. But they weren't done there. In October 2014, they began the show Rebels, which went for 4 seasons. In December 2015, they released the first of their new trilogy, The Force Awakens. It had its flaws, but was universally loved by fans who were excited to see all of the fun things that they set up. Then 1 year later, in 2016, they made a spin-off titled Rogue One. Again, another billion-dollar movie that had its flaws, but was pretty universally loved. That might have the best scene of Darth Vader we've ever seen. And then 1 year later, 2017, they made the very divisive Last Jedi. This movie was probably more anticipated than The Force Awakens, and unfortunately, it split the fan base in half. I personally hate everything about this movie, but I have friends who will defend it to their dying day and claim it's one of the best Star Wars movies. The next year, in 2018, they released another standalone called Solo. This was the first Star Wars movie in franchise history to bomb at the box office. I personally think it's a great movie, but its poor performance was in retaliation to The Last Jedi. Not enough time had passed for people to get over their feelings of Episode 8. And then, like clockwork, 1 year later, in 2019, The Rise of Skywalker was released. And unlike The Last Jedi, it united the fans, but not in a good way. Both sides agree that it sucks. I don't know a single person who defends Rise of Skywalker. It was a pitiful way to end a trilogy that they had spent nearly 7 years developing. It's very obvious in hindsight there was no planning for this trilogy. Rise of Skywalker was such a massive course correction from everything The Last Jedi did that it managed to just anger everyone. I think that mistake has progressively corroded everyone into apathy. That's not to say that they haven't had some hits. After 5 movies in 5 years, they took a break and began making TV shows for Disney+. The first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian were very successful. The Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi got mixed reviews. Everyone loved Andor, but the problem with that was that he was destined to die in Rogue One. There's only one way it can end, so you can't really expand on that. And then the final nail in the coffin was The Acolyte. Like The Rise of Skywalker, it's universally hated. And it's now been 7 years since the last Star Wars movie was released in theaters. And it's obvious that nobody cares. Nobody really misses it. Like, how are we living in a world where The Devil Wears Prada is getting more traction than Star Wars? Do you realize how bad you have to anger your fan base for that to happen? So where do you go now if you're Star Wars? They have another movie coming out next year called Starfighter, starring Ryan Gosling, that just might save the franchise. He seems to be everyone's darling after the success of Project Hail Mary. But where do you go after that? As a lifelong Star Wars fan, I'd love to see them make stories about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon when they were Master and Apprentice, and then compare it with Obi-Wan and Anakin when they were Master and Apprentice. I'd call the show Master and Apprentice. And I'd make it animated. And I'd bring back Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, and Hayden Christensen to voice their respective characters. I'd also love to see some Knights of the Old Republic. I'd love to see a Darth Vader movie or TV show of him just kicking butt and taking names, like the new Darth Maul show. But the biggest thing I'd love to see, which I think would bring back all of these Burn fans, is a complete reboot of everything after Episode 6. Just admit, we messed up, we're sorry we made this, and we're going to make it right. That's never been done in Star Wars. They've never had to retcon or reboot anything. But I think that's the best way to clean the slate. That's the only way that you can make stories set after Episode 6 that will actually interest fans. But they'll never do that. We'll see how long it takes Disney to course correct before Star Wars truly fades into obscurity.